You got to find something that you're more passionate about than the self-destructive behaviors that are sucking the life out of you.
I've always said the next morning, like, I'm never doing that again. That was so dumb, right? It felt like shit. And then you do it again, right? I've never had that feeling after a workout. I've never worked out and went, oh, that sucked so bad. I'm never doing that again.
A negative emotion that's associated with it's going to feel like, oh, I suck. I did it again. I'm a loser. And then that feeling is going to create and perpetuate negative actions that are just going to keep you making the same mistakes. So that's what we want to help you guys break, those limiting beliefs, that self-talk, that your way you're talking to yourself, the way you feel about yourself, and thus the actions that you're taking, that cause and effect that's going to radically change your life.
And I like to say this, it's your life. It's your life. It's your hourglass. And the sand is running, man, and it doesn't stop. And when it's gone, you can't flip it over and start again. Welcome to the Ultimate Man podcast, where today we're going to be talking about the one person you spend the most time with in your day, the person you take the most advice from, the person you listen to beyond a shadow of a doubt. That person is you. It's you, it's your self-talk, it's your mindset. That's the cover of our topic for today. We're going to be taking you through a training session focusing on letting go of limiting beliefs and building unshakable confidence and a bulletproof mindset. Coach Aaron, welcome to the show with me. It's a pleasure to get to do this with you, brother. I'm always excited. And we want to make sure before we dive into this topic that we give everybody that reminder. You might be listening to this podcast, but you might not be subscribed. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and get in and on our Ultimate Man podcast. Be part of the community. Join the forum if you're not already with us there, but make sure you subscribe. You can at least do that and help us out in the biggest way. And that's where we want to start things out. So please do that. And Coach Aaron, welcome. Good to see you, brother. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, brother. Great to be here. And bulletproof mindset. I love this topic. We're going to dive deep today, gentlemen. So let's rock and roll.
Nice. I love it. So remember I said the person you spend the most time with is you. And you might think, well, yeah, I never thought about that. You're literally in your head 24 hours a day. You're the person you hear the most stories from. Those stories may not be serving you anymore. So let's dive into point number one. I want to talk about self-awareness. The tip here is pay attention to your self-talk. And the things that you think, you feel, and you do are something you need to be aware of. Acknowledge these negative thoughts without any judgment. So Coach Aaron, when you think about that, take us through a little bit of a framework there. You said the things you think, the things you feel, and the things you do. How do you frame that when you're talking to clients, and how do you frame that for yourself?
Yeah, so I like to give specific examples, so I'll just give an example. How you talk to yourself, like what is your internal terminology and vocabulary to yourself? I'll just think back to when I was, having a bunch of struggles with, just being out of shape and going through addictions and depression, all this stuff. I had this real negative self-talk, and that was just impacting the way that I felt, and then thus the things that I did and the choices that I was making in life. So like, for instance, just hypothetically, just to give you an example, like I would do a negative action. I would like, drink too much beer or something, and I would just feel crappy about myself. And I would just talk to myself like, oh, there you did. You did it again. You suck. You're screwed. That negative self-talk is just, it could be a simple little a negative affirmation that you're repeating to yourself over and over, just like, oh man, you're a piece of shit,
Mhm.
and that self-talk is going to create a negative emotion that's associated with it. It's going to feel like, oh, I suck. I did it again. I'm a loser. And then that feeling is going to create and perpetuate negative actions that are just going to keep you making the same mistakes. So that's what we want to help you guys break, those limiting beliefs, that self-talk, that your way you're talking to yourself, the way you feel about yourself, and thus the actions that you're taking, that cause and effect that's going to radically change your life.
Dude, what a start to the show. If you're listening to this, oh man. So what you're framing there was, and again, I'm trying to pick up what you're putting down here. You said the emotion is created based on that thought first, right? So that old limiting belief, that thought presents itself, then you start to feel something because of that thought, and then you act upon the feeling, or you don't act upon because of the feeling, and that's where you get held up and you're not taking any action at all. That can be because you get the memory or the belief, then the feeling, then the action, and the action would lead to the habit and the outcome, wouldn't it? So I
Yeah.
think if I'm if I'm picking up on what you're saying, that's incredible, bro.
Yeah,
I love that.
you're sipping what I'm pouring.
Yeah. Nice. Oh man, that's awesome. So guys out there who are listening, this is important. Taking action on everything that we talk about today is going to be how you get results. We always say, action or implementation beats information, right? So we're going to give you information, but you got to do something with it. So if you want to take action on self-awareness, you got to become aware of your self-talk and initiate a daily journal. Now, again, a lot of guys don't like to write stuff down. Coach Aaron, have you had a lot of clients in the past where they just kind of like they fight back against like the journaling and like I don't have time for that. I don't want to write things down. Have you had a lot of people like that?
Yeah, but then I really reiterate to them the impact that it can have and the people that actually do implement that. And I have this thing called the Titan Tracker in our Ultimate Man forum that you can actually write down daily. What is your negative self-talk? What are those disempowering beliefs that you're buying into? And then how can you reframe and create, and what can you learn from that, and how can you reframe it? So I just really I pounded home into a lot of my clients that the people that do this have the most success. And then because it's that consistency, we know it's getting in those reps and that consistency day after day after day and bringing that awareness, and then through that awareness be able to make the change.
Nice, nice. And I think about it, that's really good. And you said there's a framework and a journal you can actually do in the forum. I think you were saying that, right?
Yeah.
Tracker, right? So when we always say, you think back to the old days of bodybuilding, guys used to carry around, I remember early days, they'd carry around a notebook in the gym, open it up and like take repetitions, like here's how many sets I did, here are my reps I did. And that journaling was a documentation of the progress they were making. But we're saying do that in other areas of your life too. Don't just walk around the gym with your app or your notepad. Like take it to life and say, okay, here's something I need to be learning because I keep saying this to myself. It starts my belief, then my emotion is created by that belief, then my action stems off that emotion, and then it's either no action or whatever that leads to the outcome. So sometimes not taking action is still an action, right? Important to remember. And so this is step number one, the self-awareness. You've got to pay attention, dudes, to what you think and what you feel and what you do. Those three things are going to change your life. All right. So anything you want to add to that first tip, Aaron? Or are we ready to move to challenging those negative thoughts?
Yeah, just again, just to pound home the importance of doing a journal. Like you said, there's the professional bodybuilders. I was just watching a biography on Dorian Yates the other day, and he had his journal of what he was doing for his sets and reps and weights, like every freaking workout. It's the people that really track what you treasure and measure to master. So if the more you can track that stuff, the more you're going to be cognizant of what you're doing and then the mistakes that you're making so that you can level up in life. So whether you're applying that to bodybuilding or you're applying that to your mindset, the same protocol still applies, I think.
Nice. Yeah. It's so carryover. The body, the mind, the spirit, I guess, literally all connected. And you hear these things a lot, guys. And I know that some of this sounds, like what they call cliche. You hear it all the time and stuff. But listen close because even as coaches like Aaron and myself who've been at this 30 years now, we still journal, we still make documentation, we still keep track of things. A lot of things have moved now to the digital format. Like you might have an app. For me, I have an app that we use in our Precision Elite training stuff, and I work out through the app. I document the reps and the set stuff. But when it comes to self-talk, nobody's writing anything down. You just don't even realize you're doing it. And again, you spend the most time with yourself. You're the one who's, you got to listen to and frame, what you're saying to yourself. So self-awareness is key. But now once you have documented it, once you've got, okay, well, like Coach Aaron, you gave an example of where you were getting your own head and saying like, you're a loser, right? You don't deserve this. Like that self-talk can show up in a lot of ways. And you hear these types of things and you got to catch yourself saying it. Like, when's the last time you said, I'm good at something? Like, oh, I'm actually really good at that. Most of the time you focus on the negative and you kind of, frame it as I'm not good at this, or that's something I suck at, and you get in your own head, but you got to write those things down because that's the ones you need to reframe and challenge. And I just want to bring this out. So again, if people are realizing, I have a lot of things I say to myself that's negative, I want you to understand that's okay. It's normal to have those thoughts because the brain is trying to protect you from having it happen again. So a lot of you might have had a trauma in the past. You might have had something that you're really holding on to because it hurt. And I was like, maybe for dudes out there, maybe it was a breakup. The first time you ever had a really serious relationship, you committed, you went all in. and then it didn't work out. She breaks your heart, right? And you're like, I'm never dating again. That was, the pain is so great, right? Or maybe you tried to follow a diet or a workout routine and you were like, I was on track doing so good, then this happened. And now I can't get back to it. And I was doing so good, I lost everything. And that negativity can also carry over. Remember that that's the brain trying to protect you from having that pain happen again. And it's serving you, but at the same time, does it still serve you now? So those are some things we're going to talk about. But I just want to frame that early on because a lot of people believe that you got to like completely remove or eliminate that old belief. And what we're saying is we're going to try to reframe it so you can replace it and have it serve you better. So now we need to challenge the negative thought. All right. So the question is, what is the validity of the negative thought? How valid is it? Is it something that actually happened based on facts, or is it something that you've created? How many times have you just told yourself a story so many times it became true? Right? And you think that the more you repeat something, the more it becomes real. And that's why we talk about incantation and those positive affirmations. So, Coach, can you give us a few examples of some of the things that either you've implemented or you've had clients implement when it comes to this challenging of the negative thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that goes back to something you just said is like you don't have to get rid of the negative thought necessarily because all beliefs and all thoughts exist. It's not, and I like to keep this in mind. You can't relinquish something unless you own it. So first you have to own that you're saying, okay, I am saying that, I'm a loser, I'm a piece of shit, I suck, I'm addicted to this or that. You don't have to like push that away because what you resist persists. You have to first acknowledge, okay, I'm having this limited belief. That's okay, but it doesn't matter what belief that's coming into your mind. What matters is what you act upon. So if you can come up with a flip that negative belief into a positive one, and then just express that positive belief. I think that's what matters most. So don't fight against the negative belief system because what you resist persists. Just adopt a new one.
Yeah, I love these lines you've got too. They're cool. Definitely some things to write down. So don't resist, persist. The thought of holding on to an old limiting belief is, what we're supposed to be talking about today is overcoming it, but we're talking about reframing it, not just trying to eliminate it. We talk about habits. People used to smoke or used to drink, and we're trying to teach them to replace habits rather than just eliminate habits. But this goes for thoughts too. Thoughts have to actually be just reframed and replaced with something new that you can focus on. So something, we talked about it in previous episodes too, something negative that has happened to you can be reframed as a positive launch pad for something else. But first off, you got to challenge that thought and say, is it real? Am I actually dealing with something that really happened? Or is this something I've just perceived? Like fear, the acronym, right? False evidence appearing real. And a lot of people haven't heard that before, but it's really important that you understand that fear a lot of times has never actually happened. It's not something that you have any evidence of, but you've perceived this idea. So it's appearing real. And the more you keep telling it to yourself, the more real it becomes. That's crazy powerful,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy for sure.
That's nuts. So if you've never heard that acronym fear, write that down because you got to realize it's false evidence. It's not there. So we're not saying that you haven't had a bad experience. Guys out there who are listening right now, if you've been through some shit, it's okay. That's a good experience to be able to learn from. We talked about don't never lose. Learn from learn from your losses, right? We've talked about that and use that as a way to reframe and move forward. So challenge it though and see, did it actually happen? Is it real? Here's something I'd like to do. And I don't even have the notes on this here, but Coach Aaron, if you're willing to, what is the thing you're most afraid of?
Just not living a life that's up to my full potential, just dying on my deathbed and being like, man, you didn't live up to your full capacity. You lived small. So
Wow.
I'm not gonna die like that.
Yeah, wow, that's huge, brother. Okay, that's a bigger vision. I was thinking small, to be honest. I was
Okay.
like, that's huge. Almost like you almost answered that question we ask our main event guests, like, what would it take to be the ultimate man? It's like literally not living to your full potential. That's a huge reason, a framework for being the ultimate man. I was thinking like, simplicity. Like a lot of dudes out there. I got a buddy who's absolutely afraid of clowns. and he's got like this terror of clowns. I mean, if there was a clown coming through like the, like anywhere near him, I mean, he runs, and he's a grown man, right? Just a fear of it. Now, I don't know if anything's ever happened to him. Like, have you ever been like molested by a clown, or what the hell's the deal, right?
Yeah.
or, or is it just false evidence because you watched a scary movie like, Stephen King's It, and there's just that scary clown, or whatever, right? I don't know where his stem of where his fear stems from, but for me, I've got this fear of snakes. And I tell that, and I don't want anybody to, write in and start sending pictures of snakes, or sending me snake, memorabilia, because people do that, right? They find out what you're afraid of, and then they try to hit you with it. But for some reason, Aaron, I've got this fear of snakes, and I've never really held or been near a snake, to be honest. I've had garter snakes, I think, in like my sandbox when I was a kid. Maybe that shit still, somehow detriment, it still plays on me. And I have one memory that stands out where I was in the sandbox, and there was a garter snake that went through the sand right by me. And I do remember getting a little bit freaked out. And then I remember, my dad coming out with I forget what it was, like a rake or something like that. He grabbed the snake with a rake and he threw it up into a tree, and then it got hung on a branch. And I was like, it just became traumatic, right? It shouldn't have been, probably. And I'm thinking maybe that's where it all stems from, right? It's these early things. And so, do I really have a reason to be afraid of a snake? Is it factual? Or is that just something I've created, and it got more and more intense the more I told that story to myself, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, and
Yeah.
again, I guess, you gave me a really wicked answer. Are there any simple, small fears that you have like that, where like my snake
Sure.
story?
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
What would
Yeah.
it be for you?
Well, I mean, I don't know if a snake is false evidence appearing real. Like there's some snakes that can mess you up. So that might be a legitimate fear. I'd be watching out for some little, baby rattlesnakes for sure. But I've always been afraid of big dogs, dude. And again, it's not like I've ever been attacked, really. I mean, I've had some dogs chase me on my bike and stuff before that scared the crap out of me. But anytime I see a big dog, man, it doesn't, I mean, if it looks like it's aggressive at all, I'd grab a stick, or so have a knife on me, or my pepper spray, or, something, dude. I'm always walking with something just in case there's a big freaking dog.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's true. I don't even think about those types of things. And sometimes in the moment you may, get presented with these fears, and then they're obviously real, right? That's a real deal. You've been bit, or you've been hurt, so what we're saying here in point number 2, guys, is challenge that negative thought. Is it real? Is it really something you should still be afraid of? Aaron's a grown man. He can defend himself pretty well. His MMA career says you should be able to take out a dog. But, at the end of the day, there's still a fear there, isn't there? And so the
Yeah.
same thing with me. It's like this little snake should not have a power over me. But like you said, there's a venomous bite to some snakes. There's probably some legit reason to be afraid of it. So what we're saying is just, check the validity of that negative thought. So let's move on to the number 3 tip here, and the positive affirmation. But I wanted to go back, just give a quick tip on the challenge of negative thoughts. When a negative thought arises, ask yourself, is it based on fact, or is it based on story? Make sure you take that from that part, that module right there, because you've got to really eliminate the ones that don't matter anymore, because they're not even real. Like you literally give too much power to something that never happened. So then positive affirmation, replace the negative thought with the positive affirmation, and create a list of countering specific negative beliefs. So repeat affirmations daily to reinforce a positivity. And so, are there any specific positive affirmations you give yourself, Coach Aaron, on a daily basis? Like you talked about having those doubts before, like you're a loser and stuff. Do you say to yourself, like, I'm a winner and today's going to be a good day? And I woke up this morning with a mission, or, how do you go about it? Do you have any of these things you say to yourself, or is that, because you hear this stuff from like a lot of the leaders out there and the influencers, be positive and say these things, incant these beliefs, and they do have a lot of power, but do you use them?
I do, but it's kind of you got to be kind of a little ninja with it. So this is how I like to look at. I like to have like really brief, short ones that like you can just use, because when you're in a negative mindset, you need kind of just like an anchor to grab onto. That's something that's really simple to implement. So I like to have a couple of them. Like I got this is one of mine. So I'm having a struggle or something like that. Like I got this. It's 3 words. I can remember that. It's just like a quick go-to. Like, another one I like is I believe in my ability to figure this out. So if I'm having a challenging situation, I believe in my ability to figure this out. That works for me. And then, but a lot of times I think people try to, like you said, go from like they have this negative self-talk of like I'm a loser, and then they try to say replace with I'm a winner. And I don't think that works. That's too big of a jump for a lot of people, because I'm a loser is like a real negative, low vibrational state, and I'm a winner is like way up here, right? You got to kind of meet in the middle somewhere. You got to kind of like graduate yourself up to that I'm a winner state. So instead of I'm a loser, you could instead say, oh, I got this. I believe in my ability to figure it out. And then pretty soon, a couple more affirmations after that, then you can gradually work yourself up the vibrational scale into, no, I really am a winner. I've got a lot of things that I've succeeded at. I've a lot of challenges that I've overcome. And you start talking yourself into this new positive vibration. It's pretty cool.
That's nice. I like that. And so, almost like lifting weights, progressive overload, you don't just go, I'm going to lift 300 pounds today. You start with, okay, I can't lift shit. I'm weak. I've never done this before. Start with 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds. You work your way up eventually to perfecting the skill and having mastery and lifting 300 pounds, if that's, obviously where it ends up, not for everybody. But I like what you said there about that mindset and that self-talk being a progressive overload, just like weightlifting. Now, that's very
Yeah.
cool. The thing I took from that really rung out to me was low vibration. When you were talking about that low vibration mentality, and it creates, when we talked about the mood, right? The feeling. And I just want to kind of frame it like this, because I'd say to people, if you get up today and you dress in black, is that a happy vibration color, or is that kind of a negative darkness? Right now, I'm not saying that I'm trying to send out negative darkness by wearing black. I got this new Ultimate Man podcast T-shirt, and I'm stoked about it. We're gonna be getting the merch coming your way.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so black's a color that a lot of guys wear. It's a dark color, though, isn't it? And again, Coach Aaron, you got a black hat on and a black background. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the color of black, but we got to realize that there is a connotation and alignment with certain things. Color is one of them. If you're in a dark room, it's a shutdown mode. It's a darkness. It's a vibration at a low frequency. If you're in a very bright positivity, maybe you go outside and there's sunlight, it's a much brighter. It's a happier. Like if I said the color yellow, which we think the sun is, right? Is yellow or orange. That's a much higher frequency of vibration. It's a much more positive color. And again, I could be way off base here. I'm not a scientist and I'm not an expert, but I do realize that there's correlation to color. And I think that people have a certain room. You want to get into a right mindset, maybe not stay in a dark black room, right? Move yourself to a brighter and more positive way. And so when you said about the low vibration, I think, the color black, maybe a sad song, right? You notice when a sad song comes on the radio, it triggers a lot of sadness, right? You might
Yeah.
start crying. You don't even know why. You start, tears start welling up and you're like, what the hell, right? That song hit you in a way, and maybe it had nothing to do with the song, but it was the mood, the slow mood of the song. It's probably why a lot of people always say they don't like country music. The old stereotype of country music was I lost this and I lost that, and is this such such a story of real life loss that people just like, that's too sad for me. I need like upbeat. So when people work out, they're like, I'm not listening to country music. I'm going to listen to like heavy metal. But heavy metal is like an anger state, right? There's a vibration with that too. And so a
Yeah.
lot of dudes, you're listening to this, you're like, yeah, but I love the heavy metal. It's because you want to get into that angry state when you're lifting those weights. That's what you personally choose to do. And so the music sets a mood and a vibration. I like
Yeah.
that. Now, maybe I'm way off track here because we're supposed to be talking about positive affirmation, but I
Yeah.
think that positive aligns with color, it aligns with music. What else do you think about that, Coach?
I think that's a great point, and I'll go off on a little tangent, but I think these tangent little rabbit holes are always kind of groovy, anyways. So yeah, I used to listen to a lot of just like hardcore, angry music and stuff when I was working out because it gets your adrenaline and endorphins pumping, and you just get like high and stuff from the anger emotion or the intensity emotion. But the problem that I found with that, and you might want to play with this if you're one of those guys that kind of does this on a regular basis, is that you're kind of training yourself into that emotional vibration so that not only when do you keep that intensity and that anger or whatever it is while you're working out, but there has a tendency for that to kind of carry over and linger into the rest of your life and stuff. But and so now I don't listen to the angry music anymore. I still listen to some like uplifting positive music, but it's not quite so as intense as like when I was younger and I used to listen to the hardcore stuff, but it still pumps me up. But I'm not coming at my workouts with that angry intensity like I used to. It's a positive intensity. It's still an intensity to crush the workout, but it doesn't have a carryover effect that lingers for hours afterwards and keeps me in that stressed out, that fight or fight vibration. And I can kind of,
Right.
chill out after the workout, and it's a lot more it feels a lot better.
Yeah, that's a good point too, bro. Because the way you mentioned that about the carryover, I've never really even thought about that. Like, because I always, I guess you kind of get to that feeling like you feel like you're invincible, right? I can just turn it on, I can just shut it off, right? And so you think I go to the gym, I turn that music on, I pump it, but then I can leave there and just be a really good dude, and it shuts off. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe you have to be, like you said, coach. You got to be really aware of how that might carry over. You may carry that anger and that mood and that atmosphere with you. But if you're using it as an awareness, like you're aware that it does bring you to a certain state, then that's great. And again, this ties directly back to an old story you tell yourself. So if what if there is a situation in your life that you just the minute you think about it, you're triggered. Anger just sets off, and if you hear that word or you see that person or whatever it is, there's a trigger. You have to identify that trigger right away to know that this is something I have to address and deal with, but because it's going to set you into a certain state, right? You're going to get into that angry state immediately. Now, what does that do to your day? What does that do to the next steps you take? What does it do to even the way you're going to handle a situation? You got to be aware of that trigger. That trigger is really important. A lot of people say, well, that's, they correlate that to food. Like I have one chip or one chocolate and I can't stop. I'm going to binge the whole thing. And so food is pretty easy to understand. Like, oh yeah, once I have one, I can't, you stop and I eat the whole thing. But it can also happen emotionally. Once you have one song, it sets off that trigger and now you're in that state for a long period. So I love that you said carryover. It's not
Yeah.
just for that moment. It might affect your whole day. So here's something I always say: when you get up in the morning, don't open your phone and go to the news. What are you going to hear? Starting your day with like absolute terror and destruction in the world, right? Or you check your emails and so needs this and so needs that. And you're starting to compare yourself. Oh, look at her on social media or him on social media. You start comparing yourself. And next thing you know, you got this really terrible mindset framework. You're going to carry that vibration with you for the day. So yeah, you nailed it, coach, man. That was really important. A song can set off a mood, and a mood can carry over. And we talked early in the today's podcast about the mood being the what leads to action or not taking action. So this is really important to tie all this together. But sometimes, like you said, these rabbit holes take us down exactly where we need to go. I love it,
Yep.
man.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to get that
Beautiful.
positive momentum.
Yeah. So again, we talked about color, we talked about music, we talked about triggers. You got to really identify these things that set you off, and also know that an old story can serve you. And that's important because we're probably going to touch on that in a lot of what we talk about today. But if you have that old negative triggering story, you might be able to use that as motivation to move forward as well. And is there a story or anything that comes to mind for you, coach, that you think of right away when I say that, about having an old belief or an old story that you now use as, you know what? I'll show you. It actually motivates me or fires me up. Like I think back to when I, kind of gave up on life at some point when the boxing had kind of come to an end and I was in that depressive state. And once I started getting back on track, I thought, who was that guy? Who was that guy that I was for like 7 years in between there, where he sat around and did nothing and his alignment with life was terrible. And he felt he had no purpose. Like, I'll show that guy. He's never coming back, right? And so I could live in that victim mentality and be that guy, but I also know that I can crush that guy. I can leave that guy behind, and I never want to return to that guy. So he's a negative dude that inspires me to be a better guy. And I think that's for me, that's a major driver. So it's a vibration. If I think about him, it brings me down, it brings me low, but I can also use him as a what not to do, right?
Yeah.
Have you got one of those or a specific example, coach?
Nothing that really comes to mind.
Cool.
No.
Yeah. No worries. But again, it's just like this is where our conversations go. So as we go in from positive affirmation into visualization, imagining a positive future free from past limitation. Okay. So action here, engaging daily visualization, picture achieving your goals and focusing on emotions and details of success. So the first thing I like to talk about here is George St. Pierre. the UFC fighter. I had seen an interview with him once. They were talking about his training and like, George, what do you do to get ready for a fight? And, like, how intense is the camp? When do you start? They're asking all those specific questions. And he decided the one thing he wanted to talk about more than all of the training protocols was visualization. He said one of the sessions they focused on was literally just seeing the fight. He would sit with his eyes closed and watch the fight take place. Every move, every counter to everything that was going to happen, he saw it all happen before it happened. Then he saw himself at the end with his hand raised in victory. This fight has not even taken place yet, and he's already won it in his mind. And I thought, holy shit, what a powerful tool to have, visualization. And so in this one, we're talking about visualization, engaging in this visualization and picturing you actually achieving your goal. So we go back to, you got to have a goal. Coach Aaron, you talked about SMART goals. Set that SMART goal. We've talked about that. Go back and watch those episodes. If you haven't seen them yet, you're going to get major value. But now we're talking about visualizing it. What will it look like when you get there? So you gave us something off camera that I want to bring back here. You said the GPS. Can you give us that analogy and what it stands for as an acronym? We know a GPS as something that, you put your address where you want to go and it takes you there. What is the
Yeah.
acronym? Tell us a little bit how you use that.
Yeah, I love that you were just talking about GSP too, because GSP used the GPS to his greatest possible self. He was imagining his GPS, where he wanted to be, his greatest possible self of winning those fights. And yeah, I love that acronym, GPS, greatest possible self. Imagine where you want to be, that ideal outcome, and then just rehearse it in your mind and get in those mental reps. And just, I used to do the same thing before fights and stuff. I would just like lay in bed all night long and just like rehearse a fight, and I'd like put myself in bad situations and I'd get out of it and I'd reverse it, and like every situation that I could potentially encounter in a fight, I had a counter to it already, done pre ahead of time in my mind. So it's a huge, and there's been so many studies that like people that just even visualize themselves, whether they're doing a golf swing or whatever, they perform so much better just from the act of the visualization itself without even performing the act. So getting those mental reps is huge.
Nice. That's really cool. Now, I know we're doing a mindset training, but just for the guys out there, because again, we're talking about health, fitness, and everything that makes the ultimate man. When someone's working out, is visualization part of your training protocol? Do you use the mind muscle connection almost in a way where you can see it to feel it even more? Is that something you use?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think back to Arnold. Arnold was one of the big proponents of that. He thought about, when he was doing his shoulder presses or whatever, of just building these mountains of shoulders. So when I'm doing my chest presses or whatever, you just see that chest just filling up, and you just visualize it, and then you can feel it that much more, and you can just create that image. So you're creating in the future. You're creating in the present moment that future self that you want to construct and mold. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. I do a lot of visualization training with my clients as well, where we talk about the mind muscle connection. I want them to understand what that muscle should look like, even if you tried to picture it under the skin. Picture it filling with oxygen when you breathe in. Picture the blood pumping to it. The more you visualize it, I find the more intense the contraction is. Like you actually can feel it more,
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people who are starting to work out too, that's something you want to be aware of. When you're exercising, where do you feel it? I know we're getting off topic a little bit here. It's probably another episode, but yeah, you want to make sure that you can actually connect with that feeling. And obviously, bringing this back to emotions and mindset, there's a lot of feelings connected to things, and thoughts become things, right? So the more you think something, the more you feel it, the more it becomes a reality. So this is all tying back together. But when we're talking about workouts and guys who are hitting the gym, that pump can be increased in intensity if you take time to pay attention to it and actually think about it, right? Visualize what's going on there. I love it. And like you said, Arnold, perfect example. Pumping Iron, I think if you probably watched that a billion times. We've seen Pumping
Yeah.
Iron. But yeah, Arnold is very descriptive with his words and his visualization, and yeah, he gets a lot of guys fired up about the workout process. So visualization, and Coach Aaron, you've got something you call the super self. Can you give us a little bit of detail on that?
Yeah, so it's basically like a four-part formula. So basically, you just number one is you imagine your super self. So like get a picture of your ideal super self, or your divine being, the person that you want to create, that ideal version of yourself. So first imagine your super self. And then number two is put your super self into your ideal situation. What is your ideal life situation? Okay, so you imagine the best version of you, put them into that ideal life situation, And then you observe in your imagination, how does that super self, how does that, what kind of beliefs does that super self have? What are the thoughts that they're thinking to themselves? What is that verbal self-talk that they're using? What are the actions that they're taking in their life so that you're taking those same actions, and then you just model that exact behavior. So imagine your super self, put your super self into your ideal situation. How does that super self feel, think, and act, and then do the exact?
Nice. I love that. Again, you're going to get so much value being here at the Ultimate Man podcast. You got to take notes, guys. If you're listening to this, try to do this. If you're driving, obviously be safe. But a lot of people listen to their podcasts while they're driving. I'm like, okay, don't try to take notes at that point, unless you got a voice recorder to your phone. But that's really important. The super self is about a vision of seeing yourself at the end. What would you look like? How would you sound? What would you weigh? What would you eat? How would you carry yourself? When someone is slouched over with their shoulders, and again, people who are watching this on video right now, you can see me, but if those of you listening to this on audio, I'm slouched over right now with my shoulders rolled forward. My breathing is very, very shallow. Do you think I'm in a confident physiological state, or do I represent someone who's very, very either shy or lacking confidence? And one of my favorite things I say is posture up. This is a quote that I kind of coined the phrase a long time ago. I said, posture up. And I would send this to clients out of the blue, literally in the middle of the day. I would just send them a text message that says, posture up. And they would go read it and go, how does he know? Right? Is he watching me? And they would literally fix it. And they'd send me back going, are you literally watching me? I was so slouched over because most of us spend the majority of our day now with a cell phone in hand, arched over and texting, or that, and we're talking about that thoracic positioning. I mean, you see people who are a lot older have had bad posture for a long time. Their body is in a really bad thoracic state, and they're rounded over, and it just gets worse as the body ages, and they're not taking care of the muscle mass. It starts with posture, but posture also leads to mindset. So as soon as you stand up tall, roll the shoulders back, take that deep breath in, your posture changes, your physiology changes, your mindset changes. You can change your state through your physiology immediately. I think that's really powerful information. And Aaron and I both, as I talked about this, both kind of rolled it back and stood up a little taller. And again, we catch ourselves doing it, but you've got to learn to, again, identify those triggers and those things you do. So physiology is a huge part of that limiting belief, because sometimes it's sneaking up on you just because of the way you're sitting, the way you're standing, the way you're positioning yourself. What do you think of that, Coach? Have you got anything to add to that as far as physiology? Do you catch yourself in that state often and going, oh shit, I do need to fix that posture?
Yeah, totally, dude. Yeah, your physiology dictates your psychology big time. So like, yeah, just posture up. I love it, dude. Yeah,
That's good.
just bring that awareness to it. Yep.
Yeah. And I want you to think about this too. And Coach, give me your feedback. If there's a guy that you idolize or kind of like role model after and go, that dude, he's the man, right? How does he stand? How does he walk? How does he talk? Some of the guys I think of like right away when I'm thinking about it, obviously we mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger in his bodybuilding day, just a monstrous frame and such a strong. But nowadays, a lot of the influencers you see online, you and I talked before the show about Bedros Keuilian, and some people either like him or they don't, right? Bedros is straight to the point. He's he's a very successful individual. Not just financially, but physically, looks like a beast. Just speaks from a very strong standpoint, right? And again, I want to emulate that, and I want to be that person for our clients as well. But do you have a specific guy that comes to mind, or a specific figure, or maybe it's you, it's your version of yourself? I think back to being a kid. Halloween was one of my favorite times because I got to dress up as that superhero, as that person. And guess what happened? As soon as I put that Batman shirt on, you know what I mean? As soon as I put that cape on, dude, I became invincible. I was running around the parking lots, crashing into stuff. I was like, nothing could harm me, right? And it was
Yeah.
because I was living in that body. I was living in that mindset for that moment or that night, right? What if every day you got to live in that superhero's outfit because you used visualization as a powerful tool? What do you think of
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I like it, dude. Yeah, one guy that comes to mind, love me or hate me. I'm a Trump fan myself, but Trump is a guy that just always exudes a level of confidence. You see him in interviews, he is just like sitting up erect, tall and confident, and he is not wavered by all the crap and stuff that's flown his way. So Yeah, I think just creating that posture in everyday life. And again, you don't have to be a Trump fan to recognize that just that modeling the behavior and creating a posture within yourself that emulates the strongest version of you and carrying that in every moment of your life is going to be profound.
Love that. Yeah. It lines with your super self you're talking about. So, on this point, gentlemen, listening to this podcast right now, super self is about that visualization. It's about seeing yourself in the future and what that ultimately would look like. And then notice, even if you've ever been there before, have you ever gone through a weight loss program and lost weight? How did you feel when you reached the weight loss point? Did you carry yourself taller, happier, stronger? Were you more proud of yourself in that state? The accomplishment came a lot with the physiology that you carried daily. And the minute that you started to gain weight and started talking yourself down, like, oh, see, I can never hold on to this. I rebound every time I try to do this. I used to be strong. I've lost so much power. These types of beliefs also change that physiology too. And you start to feel weak. You start to visualize yourself as weak. And you're no longer in alignment with that guy who was successful, right? And so if you grew up without that role model around who was strong, confident, and really exuded that, that machismo, right? You may have had a different upbringing. And I just want to get personal for a second because I know you and I always try to be honest with everybody. I grew up in a family dominated with women in the family. I had two little sisters, and so I was not. I was like, of three children, I was the only boy in the immediate family. I did have a half brother who was much older than me, and then an adopted brother that came into the picture when I got adopted. So I did have a lot of family dynamic there, which is probably another episode in itself. But I was directly mostly spending my time with female, being my two sisters. I started doing more feminine things than I did masculine things. I wasn't a machismo kind of guy. I was always the, hey, I'll talk myself out of violence. I'm not going to fight. And here I was, a guy who's going and training boxing, right? Punching people, so it didn't seem like an alignment that matched my character, which is why a lot of people doubted why I ever got into boxing in the first place. Like, that's not for you, dude. You're not that guy. And I did say that earlier on our episode 1, where I talked about, I didn't have that killer instinct, right? And coach, you were saying you had that. You were just like, I'm coming in to kill for that first minute, right?
Yeah.
Me, it was completely different for me. I grew up with that female influence. And so I had just like, and again, I'm not saying that I did everything that my sisters did, but I just spent, you become a product of the people you spend the most time with, right? So I didn't have a lot of that aggressive ego machismo side of me at all, which also led to look like, a lot of times I didn't have confidence or that outgoingness that a man or that male alpha dominance has. So guys out there who are listening, if you align with me and you're feeling like, yo, dude, that's me, I'm not that guy either, understand that your physiology and your visualization of that guy can actually help you take steps, like Aaron said, progressively overload, to become a little bit more assertive in your life. Maybe you've been walked on, you've been beaten up through verbal abuse, you've been talked down to. And again, I'm not saying this is my situation, because I wasn't. I was very blessed to have a lot of people who supported me in my life, not so much my boxing, but in my life. And I was blessed to have been adopted and everything else that came with that. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're a guy who doesn't see yourself as an alpha male dominant, and you don't connect with Coach Aaron saying, Trump and posture and stuff, and I'm saying Bedros, and you're like, that Bedros guy, he swears too much and he's too assertive, maybe it doesn't connect with you. But understand that visualizing someone like that can still put you in a power state. I think that's important to draw from, because I do look at people like that. And there's another fella I see online a lot, and I think he was originally in car sales and became a very influential guy. His name's Andy Elliott. And when I hear this guy speak, I mean, he is confident beyond confident. And some people say, well, confidence is kind of a disguise people put on for insecurity. Have you heard that before? What do you think of that, Coach? About confidence being a disguise for insecurity?
Oh, I think that could definitely be applicable in a lot of cases for a lot of guys for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's the case with Andy Elliott. I actually like Andy Elliott. I like watching him. So when we're talking about visualizing, visualize the ultimate man in your opinion and follow suit with being in alignment with that. So hopefully people
Yeah.
take a lot of value from that. Do you want to add anything to it?
Yeah, just a little something that came to mind was that like you said, you don't whether you're on the totally alpha machismo side or you're on the more introverted side, it doesn't really matter so much. I think a lot of this life is a learning lesson to create that balance in the middle. So maybe if you are a little bit more on the introverted side, you don't have to become this super alpha male, but maybe you can just raise your introverted up just a little bit to kind of create that happy medium balance. And I think you'll feel just a little bit better just by leveling up a little bit. Or if you're too aggro and alpha and blah blah blah, cuts it all the time, and I'm the shit. Maybe just take it down a notch, bro, and maybe you'll feel a little bit more even keel there as well. So it's a good balancing act.
That's beautiful. I love that you put it in the way of, there's such a thing as too much too, right? On the other end of the spectrum, because we are trying to idolize and emulate the practices, habits, language, posture of the strongest, most dominant. But at the same time, that can be like the heavy metal music that carries over. Right, when we
Yeah.
talked about that the song continued to play. So we spent a lot of time on visualization today, but holy man, does it make a difference, right? We started this conversation with GSP, one of the most dominant champions in UFC history, in my opinion, and I think in a lot of people's opinion. Strategy was a major game plan for him, but the visualization, I think, when he wanted to talk about that more than his training camp, I was like, hey, that says a lot. Right, that says a lot. And now, do you see GSP on Instagram and social media? He still, to this day, retired, lives such a visualization lifestyle. And again, he's kind of into a lot of the biohacking. You can see a lot of the ice bath and the red light therapy. And I mean, but he is in incredible shape. Such a guy, I believe, to like emulate and role model after. Just such a good dude. Let's get him on the podcast. GSP, if you're listening, we want you on the Ultimate Man podcast. We're
Yeah.
inspired.
Come on, brother.
we're inspired. All right. So, in the next point, if we're okay to move on here, I want to talk about reframing past mistakes. Now, we talked about it before, saying maybe you've made a mistake in the past and you hold yourself back because that you're afraid to make that mistake again. Remember, your brain's reminding you made that mistake so that it doesn't happen again, but you could learn from that. So, reframe the past mistake, view a past mistake as a learning opportunity. And so document any past mistakes that you've made. This is an action you can take now. Write down something that you did today that may have been a mistake, and you want to be able to learn from that. And so you want to list 3 things that you learned from it so that you don't make that mistake again. And you might actually be able to use it and utilize that lesson as a stepping stone. And that was one of my quotes that I was trying to get across to Coach Aaron as we were talking earlier today. I like to use this, and it's always just a way of framing it. But when you have a loss or a mistake or an experience that was negative, try to turn that into a stepping stone rather than a tombstone. That's super powerful because that tombstone is the end of the line. And a lot of people get held up right there. They hold on to that mistake, that one thing they did wrong in their life, and they just dwell on it and say, I'm a loser because of it. I can't get past it. And that's why I never do this or that. I don't eat right because I don't train because, and whatever that story is you're telling yourself is a tombstone. Turn it into a stepping stone, use it as a launch pad. What do you think about that, Coach?
Yeah, that's a great point. It brings me to this. I think a lot of people struggle with this is that they have this self-judgment. And I think self-judgment really holds you back because I'll take it back to the kind of the formula that we mentioned at the beginning where you have the meaning that you ascribe to a situation and that creates the mood, and that mood leads to the certain actions that you take. So if you have a self-judgment of say something that you did that was wrong, right? It just should be a lesson that you're learning from. But if you create a self-judgment and say like, oh, I'm fucking stupid, I made this mistake again, that self-judgment is going to create a negative mood. That negative mood is going to perpetuate a negative action, and it's just going to circulate this negative pattern in your life. But instead of just judging yourself negatively that you did something that wasn't your preferable, highest ideal version of yourself, just be like, okay, that was a little silly, Aaron, you could have done something a little bit different. Give yourself another alternative, just pause for a second, just take a pause and be like, okay, I see that I could have, done something, made a better choice in my life here. What is another option that I can maybe implement when this situation comes up again? Visualize yourself making that new choice. And then next time that happens, you're going to be more likely to create a new positive momentum in your life.
Beautiful. Yes, that's reframing at its best right there. Right. And I like that you said take a pause. That's going to bring me right into the next part, module number 6 in our chat here today. Because taking a pause is what you've got to do to kind of realize that something, was there, and you do need to reframe it. Once you have that reframe, that pause gives you a chance to kind of consume and think about and then move forward. A lot of people get caught up like almost like running. When you're running really fast and you kind of trip and lose your balance. Have you ever seen somebody doing that? When they're running, they kind of lose, like they lose their stuff. Next thing you know, it's like they're continuing to fall and it's happening slowly, but they're still moving fast, right? Like you see them tripping, until eventually they fall on their face. But if they could just, stop and re-get their balance for a second, they could actually not fall. Right. And so this is what I think happens when people have these old beliefs, these negative things, or these mistakes they hold on to, is like you're going to keep tripping over it until eventually you fall. Right. So think about this. You could stop and reframe it, catch your balance. And I like to say catch your breath. And this brings us into mindfulness meditation. So practice being present in the moment. Take the time to stop and breathe, and start with maybe even 5 to 10 minutes of daily mindfulness and meditation, focusing on breathing and observing thoughts without attachment. Don't put any feelings on this shit. Just breathe and, kind of think it through. So I've heard this said a bunch of times since I was a kid, hey, when you get all stressed out, just catch your breath, right? And I think about it when I said, Coach Aaron, I'm going to throw you a ball, catch the ball. What are you going to do? Are you going to just have it hit your hand and drop it? No, you're going to close your hand. You're going to hold it, right? And so when I say catch your breath, that literally means stop and hold it. Catch it for a second. So guys out there listening, if I'm telling you right now, try this. Take a deep breath in, hold it, catch it for a second. And then when you fill your lungs with that and slowly breathe out, you're going to feel a sense of relaxation. Right. And that's really important because you're now going to bring your stress levels down. And Coach Aaron, you talked about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous. Can you give us a little correlation there as to those systems? We've talked about fight or flight and rest and recovery type thing, and how breath work and taking time to catch your breath might benefit that.
Yeah, so when you just get in that worked up state and that self-judgment state and you're making mistakes and you're talking bad to yourself, you get in this sympathetic, this fight or flight, sympathetic dominant nervous system state, and you're just not really, you're not as cognitively enhanced when you're in that position. You can't think clearly. You're just in that fight or flight state where you're just like trying to survive. So you literally just need to pause, like catch your breath, like you said, like just count to 10 literally, and just physiologically change your physiology will change your psychology. Slow your breathing down. Take a deep breath in, hold it for a few seconds, and then really let out a slow, deliberate exhale. Do that 5 or 10 times, and you're going to tap back into that parasympathetic nervous system, which is just more of the rest and digest. It's going to calm you down. You're going to chillax. Then you're going to be able to think more clearly. Then you're going to be able to recognize and bring some awareness to those self-talk that you're doing, or that thing that you're doing that's not in your highest alignment. And you're going to be able to give yourself another alternative choice to make from that place of being in alignment and peace.
Nice. Yes, sir. That's where it's at right now. Let's stop and take a breath right now. Guys, listen to the podcast. We appreciate you being here and listening and tuning in. And we always say, stay hydrated, keep your electrolytes up, and have a drink. So cheers to the Ultimate Man podcast. Coach Aaron and I are going to take a breath, posture up, and have a drink. Here we go.
Posture up.
Right on. All right. That is awesome. It is always a pleasure getting to do this. And I hope the listeners out there are finding extreme value, because that's what we intend to deliver. On point number 7 today, as we talked about, catching breath and mindfulness meditation, I want to talk about creating a new experience. So breaking the pattern by creating a new experience. And we talked about having a habit, an addiction, something that you've been doing for a long time. Maybe it was smoking cigarettes, or maybe it was alcohol, whatever it is. And you've got this habit that's holding you back, and you know it. You know it's something you need to break, but it's hard to break because letting it go seems like a loss, and nobody likes loss, right? But so what we're saying is you need to replace loss with something you've gained. And so replace it with a new addiction, a new habit, and a new passion, right? So however you frame that word, you can replace it with whatever brings you the most positive outlook on the outcome and best self. So break the pattern by creating a new experience. The action is step outside the comfort zone, because the comfort zone is what's familiar. It's going to feel uncomfortable to make a change at first. We know this. People who have never worked out go to the gym and go, that hurts. I don't like being that sore. Hey, dial it back, right? Take the steps of progressive overload. but you're still working on replacing it and becoming addicted to a new thing. I would like to say at this point in my life, I'm more addicted to the feel that I get, the rush and the high that I get from working out, from exercise, from being healthy. I feel good about that. I love my energy. I love eating right because I feel the energy that comes with it. And I go back to the point where I was depressed. I go back to the point where I was off of training, off of eating right, and boxing had come to an end and my whole world had crashed. You know this story if you've listened to episode 1. And that guy and that alignment was just, he was in such a bad state that now the passion has been replaced. So I was addicted to being lazy. I was addicted to being a loser at this point with nothing to offer. Now I'm addicted to being the guy who can bring value, the guy who's changed his life. I'm like the before and after of real life, right? I feel like that's something that is valuable now. I've used that experience as a launch pad, a stepping stone instead of a tombstone, right? I knew I was on my way to a tombstone if I stayed there. So what I'm saying is replace and create a new experience. And coach, I want to ask you, have you had a point where you were addicted to something or you were in a state where something was like the way you had it, a habit that you had to change? You knew it was either going to be stepping stone or tombstone? Is there something that comes to mind?
Yeah, big time, dude. I mean, look, there's so many examples. I'll just give you one. But I was just, several years back, I was drinking real heavily. I was drinking like at least like a 6 pack of like the real hardcore beers every night, some like Lagunitas or little somethings, the real high percentage alcohols. And I was just getting pretty much almost drunk every night. And I just felt like crap, dude. I was depressed every day. My energy level was low. My mental state was a complete wreck. And I was like, I just cannot live like this. But I was just stuck in this vicious cycle. And I was like, how the hell do I get out of this? But I got myself back into bodybuilding and training again. And I was like, the two are just two opposed, diametrically opposed goals. You can't do one and the other. You can't be a successful bodybuilder per se and drink alcohol every night. You can't be, and this is another big one. I got into being an entrepreneur and a business owner and running our, coaching business and stuff. You can't function mentally at your highest level with the freaking hangover. I was like, which do you want more? You got to find something that you're more passionate about than the self-destructive behaviors that are sucking the life out of you. And you've got to decide which one you want. And then you just got to start making, steps towards that. So I just decided I was going to get back into fitness, started bodybuilding again. I'm like, well, I can't, poison my body with alcohol every night. I need to start eating right. I need to start, giving myself some proper hydration, taking my supplements again, and just flip my focus to fitness and to be free, basically.
Yeah. Damn that. Thanks for being so honest too, brother. I always appreciate that transparency and that authenticity that you bring. And that's part of the Ultimate Man podcast. We want to give you the real life experience. We never claim to be experts or doctors. We're great coaches because we've got great experiences and we want to bring that to you. So I love that you shared that, the alcohol. Would you have aligned yourself? And let me ask this, and again, maybe I'm diving too deep here, but would you have called yourself alcoholic? Would you have given yourself a title or a term at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely classify. I was definitely an alcohol. I was drinking every night, every freaking night, and it was just uncontrollable. And I would say that I wasn't going to drink that night, but I would still drink again, just because I had that negative momentum. And so I would definitely classify myself as an addict and alcoholic, and for
Wow.
sure.
I love you, brother. I appreciate that honesty. But here's the thing I really wanted to bring out of that was that you gave yourself a title. And now, if I said to you, "Hey, Aaron, do you want to drink? Do you want to have a beer, or you want to have a drink or whatever?" Would you say, nah, well, depends what we're drinking. I might choose based on, whatever. Or do you say, no, I'm not a drinker. I don't drink. Like I am absolutely non-alcoholic. I'm not a drinker. Have you re-given yourself a new title?
Yeah, now I just don't drink just because it doesn't serve me whatsoever. Like, I tried the whole moderation thing for a long time. I'll just try to have just a couple cocktails. I'll just drink, a couple hard alcohols and have a couple shots of tequila instead of beer. And maybe that won't be as bad for me, but I'm the type of person that one thing just leads to another. And once you get a taste of it, it just keeps on perpetuating itself. So And it just didn't feel good even anymore. I would just even have a couple drinks and just not feel good, and I'd feel the repercussions the next day, not feel as mentally sharp, not feel as energetic, and I'm just like, fuck this shit.
Ah,
I'm just going completely off, and I feel so much better because of it.
that's so cool, man. Thank you again for being so honest. I love that we bring different ends of the spectrum together. I myself have never really been down the drinking path, although I have indulged from time to time. I've always said the next morning, like, I'm never doing that again. That was so dumb, right? It felt like shit. And then you do it again, right? It's like you've talked yourself like into this state of like, well, it wasn't that bad, I guess, because you don't hold on to it. It's weird. We talk about holding on to negative beliefs, but that experience for some reason you're willing to recreate it again. And sure enough, same thing, same thing again next time. You wake up the next morning hungover, going, oh, why did I do it again? Right? And you eventually got to just redefine the title. So I think about this, and I've never been a smoker either, but some people that I know, clients that I've had, have been smokers, and some of you have completely quit cold turkey and said, I'm no longer a smoker. It's an identity, it's a title that you give yourself. You're now in alignment with a non smoker. You're not in alignment with, I have one from time to time. That's like saying I'm gonna go all or nothing approach, and I'm gonna make it work because that is the outcome I want. So sometimes the all or nothing approach can work for some people. Other people do need to wean themselves off. Like you said, Coach, if you tried to wean off the drinking, it didn't work. You had to kind of, that's it, it's done. You
Yeah.
kind of clean the slate, right, and start
Yeah.
fresh. So I always say now, I've never had that feeling after a workout. I've never worked out and went, oh, that sucked so bad, I'm never doing that again. It always feels like, wow, that was actually good. Coming into it, I thought it was going to suck and I was going to hurt and it was going to be painful, but I actually love the feeling. It goes the other way. Rather than the experience is really great from the drinking and then I feel like shit after, it goes the other way. Kind of feels like shit at first, trying to get going in the workout, get the motivation, And so I always say motivation versus discipline is a big thing. Discipline is what kicks in when motivation weans or fails. When sometimes you're not always motivated to work out or not always motivated to eat right, but the feeling you get after is the new drug. It's the new replacement. And that's what this is all about. Create a new experience and completely replace the old habit, the old belief, the old experience. What do you think of that, Coach? Does that sound like we sum it up right there?
Yeah, that's fantastic, dude. And one thing I would just encourage people that are just starting back on the fitness journey is, like you said, at first, it's a bitch for some people. They're so far out of shape. They're like just doing a little, some push-ups or some squats, and they're just like out of breath and their body's hurting and they're just like don't have the energy or motivation to do it whatsoever. So you're going to need to tough it out for a couple weeks, and have that discipline just to kind of push through it. It's not, just know that it's not going to be easy right off the bat if you really severely let yourself go. But just have that perseverance and just know that if you stick with it with consistency, a couple weeks down the road, it's going to get a little bit easier. And then you're going to start getting that little natural high. You're going to be able to push yourself sufficiently hard enough to get those endorphins going again. And then you're going to be glad you started a new fitness regimen.
Yeah.
So just tough it out for the first couple weeks and maintain that consistency. Suck it up, Buttercup.
So good, so good. I love it. So the action is to step outside the comfort zone. Working out might be a little uncomfortable, like Coach just said. Nutrition, eating healthier and cutting out some of that junk processed food might be a little uncomfortable at the beginning, but the end result is it becomes the new drug, the new addiction, the new replacement, the new passion. Make sure that in the creation of a new experience, you're focused on the outcome. Always keep that super self in mind. I love that you said that earlier, and we're going to keep that as one of our Ultimate Man, podcast, slogans is, create that ultimate man or that super self. I love that. So
Yeah.
on this point, I just wanted to say when it comes to working out as well, motivation and discipline, we talked about that. Discipline is more important than motivation. Motivation will come and go. You could, again, use a song to get motivated. I hear a song and it pumps me up, and all of a sudden I'm in a state. Physiology just changed, posture just changed. I'm ready to whoop some ass. That's why fighters have walk-in music. Some people walk into slow songs. I don't know, right? Maybe that motivates them. Maybe it has passion in a different way. We've seen some UFC fighters walk down to some crazy songs, and it's like, how does that even get them pumped up? Other guys come into have the heavy metal or the live music, whatever. I mean, there's just some crazy ways to do about it. But everybody gets in a different state. Sometimes music can change the state, but discipline overrides that motivation. So sometimes it's just you're going to come down to, it don't matter what song you play, you're just not in the mood. Discipline is going to carry you through there. So to create discipline, what do you need? consistency. And so consistency over perfection is another way to look at it. Going to the gym, expect perfection, you're going to set yourself up for failure. Going to the gym expecting consistency, you can get 1% better every time you go. That's a better way to look at it. You're going to enjoy the process a lot more. And when we talk about the old habits, we're talking about beliefs and mindset today. Get in a mindset of getting 1% better on a regular basis instead of trying to get 100% better today. You could take 100 days of 1% and try to feel 100% better at the end of 100 days. That's a much easier way to look at it, a lot less stressful, and you set yourself up for that win check mark, right? Get your win journal started. So that's really important on that. I just wanted to add that to point number 7. We're coming up on an hour, Coach. How are we doing? Are we still good for a little bit more? Or are you...
Yeah, I'm good if you're good, brother.
Okay, let's keep it going. Module number 8, or point number 8 we want to talk about today is surround yourself with positivity and engage with positive influences. Now, we always talk about this. The Ultimate Man podcast, the Ultimate Man forum, people of like-minded direction. People of like-minded, we're starting a movement here. We want you who's listening not only to subscribe to the channel, but to get into the forum and be part of our community. Be around the people who succeed. Be around the people who want to be better versions of themselves. And of course, that's why I love hanging out with you, Coach Aaron, because you bring the honest experience of your life in and we match it. And I love the energy we create together, brother. And we talk about vibration. We talked about that earlier. Like attracts like. This is important. You guys want to be at the best version of yourself. You got to be around people who do strive for the same thing, being the best version of themselves. So evaluate your social circle and surround yourself with people who uplift and inspire. And so I think when I think back to my childhood, I surrounded myself with my sisters. I became into that female environment. I used to say I was like living in the estrogen ocean. It was like surrounded by female dominance, right? And then when I'd go to the boxing gym, though, it was all dudes. And so I had male influence, male role model. I had a coach and a mentor. And I think if, again, parents out there listening to the podcast, if you have a chance to put your kids into something and you're worried they're heading down a bad path, or maybe they're hanging out with the wrong crowd, you can remove them from that crowd. You always think, I don't have control over that. They're going to hang out who they hang out with. I can tell you from experience, you'll choose your friends based on the environment you're constantly put in. If you're at school and these people are always there, then yes, you're going to choose the crowd based on the fact they're always there. But when I went to the boxing gym, everybody at school was gone. It was whoever went to the gym. We all had a like-minded mindset, right? We were all heading in the same direction. The boxing club was an oasis for me to escape the estrogen ocean I lived in at home, and I got a chance to go and be macho or give myself that outlet for a little bit of time, but every day. And the more I went consistently, the more I got in fighter alignment, if that makes sense. I got in a little bit more of a mindset. That didn't mean I was aggressive and I became a jerk and everything else. It just gave me a chance and an outlet at getting a little bit more of that like-mindedness towards being more of a man than I was, in a way of male versus feminine traits type thing.
Estrogen ocean. I love that.
Right? So I think, again, we're talking about that. Get your kid into something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Not only are they learning self-defense, we talked about it with Coach Tobias on the main event call with him. Coach Aaron, you do MMA. Boxing for me was another great way. So boxing and Jiu-Jitsu and MMA training, these are great disciplines. And I think martial arts in general teach respect. They teach discipline. It's just a really, really great place to start. Gymnastics is also very good for kids to get into for flexibility. And again, it's about showing up and being consistent. But I really believe in those martial arts, you find a lot more of the disciplined mindset and the male role model. I mean, that's where I met my first coach. I wanted to frame it this way because I think a lot of guys listening here may have had a point in their life where they didn't have either a father figure. They didn't grow up with a good male role model. Maybe your mom made a bad choice, right? And had the wrong guy in her life. And that was where you grew up with an abusive stepdad or whatever it is. And we don't want to discredit that experience, but we don't want you to hold on to that either. Realize that there are better guys out there, better role models out there, and you have access to them. You don't need to be, $1 million income earner to go and hire some, Anthony Robbins level motivator coach. That's great. If you can do that, go for it. But if you can't, these local clubs often have some of the most disciplined individuals. So Coach, take us to your early days, MMA, when you first got into it and stuff. What was that community like? What was the mindset transformation? Did you get out of the drug, alcohol type world as soon as you got into MMA, or were there some, just give us an idea of how that carried over and what the new environment was, because this is all about surrounding yourself with positivity and like-minded individuals.
Yeah, well, let me revert back just to something you said earlier about you were talking about the Ultimate Man Forum. And if anybody wants more information about that and how to get involved in our forum, you can just go to theultimatemanforum.com. And we've got a little video in there that kind of gives a description about what, all the stuff that we offer. Offer stuff on training, nutrition, mindset. You get support from us as coaches. You get positive community of like-minded people, all on the same mission, all striving to become their super self, that ultimate man version of themselves. So it's a great place to if you don't already have a club or somewhere that you go to where you got positive role models. That's why we created the Ultimate Man Forum. To begin with. So
Love
yeah,
it.
I mean, yeah, it's like you said, it's just you go into your boxing gym, you were just it created a whole new environment, and that environment is going to be more conducive to bringing forth the man that you're aspiring to becoming. So, whatever that environment is that you need to place yourself in, if you're in a negative environment now that's not conducive to your growth, find a new environment. And both of us have had, mine was karate dojos and Brazilian jiu-jitsu gyms where I had instructors that I, massively looked up to that were just like the ultimate man in my eyes, of just someone who was just not only a physical specimen, but just disciplined and had that consistency and perseverance and all the beneficial, characteristics of a man that I want to exude in my own life. So find that community for yourself, no matter where it is, and it'll be a game changer.
That's awesome. Do you think, and I love that, do you think that a gym can be that place? Now, we're not talking martial arts, but go to a gym, there's no coach there, unless you hire a personal trainer, which again can be a major game changer in your life. If you went to a gym, though, a lot of guys listening right now are afraid to go to a gym. They're like, I'm overweight, I'm inexperienced, I don't want to go there and be judged. I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know where to start. Do you think the gym is a place they should fear, Coach Aaron, or do you think that the gym might be where they might, see someone else and say, "Hey, how do you do that? Can I ask you a question?" Someone who looks more experienced. As sometimes people are afraid of, bodybuilder type guys who are in the gym. But I've found in my experience, those sometimes are the nicest dudes. They're the most experienced, and they're more than willing to share a tip or two to help you and especially keep you safe. Do you think the
Yeah.
gym's actually a safe place to start?
I think kind of both directions with that. Like I think it's definitely a good positive environment that's probably better than a lot of people where they're at now. But at the same time, I don't think, like you said, unless you hire a really knowledgeable personal trainer, you're probably not going to be guided in the great direction unless you just, you're gifted with like having someone who's really knowledgeable that's willing to, show you the ropes and stuff like that, which is not always the case. Like most of the people I see in there are kind of like struggling solo and trying to figure shit out, and they're not really good with their technique and their form, and most of the people that I see in there. So I think it would be more preferable to hire a trainer and a coach, or join something like the Ultimate Man Forum where you could get some direction and have like a training plan and a nutrition plan and everything laid out for you from experienced people that know what the hell they're doing. So it just saves you years of trial and error.
Beautiful. Yeah, the GPS,
Yeah.
the greatest possible self, but that sets a direction. That's great value. I appreciate you giving that feedback too, because you're in the gym world. I've been virtual online for about 3 years now. I grew up in the gym world as far as my career goes. And I mean, I saw the ups and downs of it all. Sometimes there are, absolute idiots in the gym and they just don't give a rat's ass about anybody but themselves. That does happen. But I still find that that's the lesser of the most. Most people are at least positive and encouraging. And so there's nothing to fear. You know what I mean? If you're not working out and you want to get working out, a gym can be a great place to start, as long as, of course, you get a coach, you get some good guidance, the GPS. But at the same time, at least know that you're not going to be judged. You're not going to be critiqued because you're overweight. Hey, that's why people go there. It's like going to a hospital to say, well, I'm worried because I'm going to be sick and everybody's going to judge me for being sick. No, you're expected to be sick when you get there. Right? You know what I
Right.
mean? You're not out of place, dude. Go to the gym because you're overweight. That's the reason you should go. You love your body, work out because you love it and you want to improve it. Don't work out because you hate it. You hate how you look in the mirror and you want to go and punish yourself. I'm going to go hit the weights as hard as I can because that's what my body deserves, is to be beat up. Like, that's absolute crash and burn. You're not going to get where you want to be doing that. So again, I may get off on a tangent. Sometimes I just get passionate about what I'm talking about. But I think that, again, I'm not here to demonize a gym or, give it all the credit. I've online at home. I've been for 3 years now, keeping a great physique that I feel confident with and in alignment with where I want to feel and how I want to look. And I've been doing that from home with a set of dumbbells and a TRX suspension system and some rubber bands. You know what I mean? So the home workout version is a great way to go about it if you're not going to get out there. But when we're talking about community, that's the one thing that a lot of times at home you can't get. So you got to reach out to something like Coach Aaron and I in the forum that gives you a place in a community while online. Because some dudes have just recently been, especially since the lockdowns and the shutdowns, you've been living at home. You've been in the dark room, in the basement, video gaming, or, whatever you're doing. And you're living that lonely, independent lifestyle. And it's just sending you down that negative darkness. And again, that might bring up more of your affirmation or reassertive, previous stories you've told yourself about who you are, what kind of life you deserve, what you lived, and getting online and getting into a community and saying, okay, well, listen, I'm just going to turn my camera on, sit back and listen during this mastermind session. I don't have much to offer because I don't feel like I do, but I do want to hear from you guys who do. And that's why we're here. That's the whole point of the podcast. Tune in, sit and listen, and take action. I think that's going to be the most important part of it. Join a community, whether it's in person, physically, or online. Get around the people who have that mindset. What do you think, Coach? Does that sum up that point?
Yeah, phenomenally said. And I've recently been going to the gym, but like you, for years, I was just working out at home, and it doesn't take much. So, I mean, if you don't like, if you're not a gym goer and it intimidates you or whatever, it just doesn't fit your schedule or whatever, don't feel like that's your only option to, get yourself fit back in shape. Like you, I just had like a little barbell at home, a couple dumbbells, some exercise bands, some TRX bands. Like it takes a minimal investment of exercise equipment and you can stay in I've been in some of the best shape of my life just working out at home. So there's literally no excuses.
I love that you said it too, because again, it confirms that, no matter where you're at, you can still get results with minimal equipment, whether you're, a Coach Aaron over in California or Coach Lalonde here, myself over in Canada. It doesn't matter where you are and what's surrounding you. It's going to be what you make of it, right? You're going to take that action. And so as you implement your workout strategy in a gym or at home, try to do it in a community mindset, because you're going to find a lot of the discipline is derived from that community more than it is the motivation. Because if motivation is your key, you're on your way to failure, because you're not going to stay motivated, especially by yourself. How easy is it to say, hey, I just don't feel like doing it today, and that's it. It ends there. If I said to Coach Aaron, I just don't feel like showing up on the podcast today. I'm having a bad day. Fuck it. I'm done. What's Coach Aaron going to say to me? No, get up, dude. We got to do this, right? We have a commitment to the guys who are listening. Get up and do it. So that's a community, even if it's just the two of us. Start with an accountability partner, and make sure you've got at least someone to tell your goals to and hold you accountable to them. I think that's really important. And of course, the more strength in numbers you have, the more powerful that's going to be. Am I on track there, Coach? What do you think of that?
Oh yeah, dude. Like when you're just doing things solo, you don't have any, you're not going to stay accountable to yourself, most people, when they're just getting started. But when you hire a coach or you're part of a team and you tell other people, you verbally, or you write down your goals and you tell other people what you're working on and what your plan is for the week. And then you put it out there to the universe, and you live up to that expectation, because you're like, I told these people I'm going to show up and sweat. You know what I mean? So you end up doing the work, because it's not just you anymore. You put that out to the world, and other people have this expectation. They're going to be like, yo, bro, did you work out like you said you were going to work out this week? Or did you not?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And sometimes people post on social media, like, I did my workout today. And a lot of people are like, oh, that dude posts about his workout. Like, listen, he's being accountable, because maybe he's got, the ability to reach out and feel like, as long as I post it out there to the world, I'm sending the vibration out there that I'm being committed. Whether someone comments on it or not, don't get caught up in that. If someone doesn't thumbs up your post or whatever, hey, you made a commitment, you put it out there to the universe that you're doing something right. You're doing something positive in alignment with who you want to be. I think that's valuable. I don't see that as narcissistic or egotistical if someone posts a picture of their little, selfie at the gym or whatever, showing that they're in the right environment. I think that could be motivation to someone else who's watching their social media channel and goes, hey, look at them. Good for them, And I think this is important too. A lot of guys who are getting started, you tell yourself the story that if you get better, you're going to lose all your friends, the people you surround yourself with. So we're talking about community, right? Surround yourself with like-minded people. You are like-minded with the people who are, let's call it the losers of life. If that's where you are, you become a product of that, and you fear leaving those friends. You're familiar, right? It's your environment and you're familiar with them, but they're not in alignment with who you really want to be. You're going to have to get uncomfortable and look to probably leave, either leave or lose those friends. And I said this in a previous episode, and I'll say it again: raise the bar, you lose the losers. Lower the bar, you lose the winners. If you are raising your bar, you're going to find more winners come into your life. I think that's so valuable. Raise the bar, get more winners in your life. But if you lower the bar, you're going to stay where you were. You're going to attract more of those people. And the winners who would have shown up and motivated you and pumped you and gave you that chance to be a better man, they're not going to show up in your life. And that's part of the law of vibration and law of attraction. But it's really important. And I think that when we talk about getting fit, getting active, and eliminating old mindsets, you're going to have to leave some people behind. Do you agree, Coach? Do you feel like there's been people in your life that, hey, you still love them for who they are and what they brought to your life or whatever, but you can love them from a distance?
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%, dude. You got to move on. You got to pursue your own passion, and you got to surround yourself with people that are on the same mission as you, because that's just going to keep the positive momentum and keep the ball rolling. But if as soon as you revert back to your old ways of thinking, your old friends and stuff like that, it's just going to hold you back. And pretty soon, you do that enough times and you're just like, man, I got to move on. I can't keep making these mistakes if I want to, evolve in my life.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very good. A lot of people support your journey early on too. And I think this is almost like a mental game here, because when you start out, people don't see you as changed yet. So they're like, "Oh yeah, Coach Aaron, you're going to get fit. Good for you. Go for it, buddy. Yeah, right on." And you're like, "Okay, cool. They do support me." And you get that boost, right? That pat on the back, and feels good. Then you start going regularly. They're not going, and they start to distance a little bit. They start to hold that little bit of resentment, like, "Hey, dude, all you do is hang out at the gym. You don't spend any time with us anymore." Right? And you start to feel that distancing, and it's like now they're turning it no longer into support. It's starting to become a little bit of an envy or a hate, and you start feeling like, okay, I better go back. I got to stop this gym thing because I'm losing my buddies. This is the worst thing that can happen, but it's a bit of a mind trick, right? Because you got to decide at that point, this is where you're about to take the next step as to the ultimate man that you want to become, or you're going to revert back into an old story, an old crowd, an old habit. Right? Is that
Yeah.
making sense? And
Yeah.
so I think that, they're going to support you in the beginning and you're going to feel like it's working, it's nice, but there's going to come a time where the support stops if they're not on track with you, because it's just like getting left behind. Nobody wants to be left behind. They're like, "Aaron, come back." Right? You're spending too much time at the gym, dude. Like, yeah, you're getting fit and stuff, but it's almost like, yeah, you're getting too obsessed with it now. And they start to villainize you. But you're not the villain here. If anything, they should be motivated by you and come with you. Bring them on your journey, but if they don't want to come, that's okay too. Let them go. Right? Doesn't mean you need to love them any less. Just love them from a distance.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
or just love them a little bit less frequently. Like maybe just don't hang out with them as often. So if you used to drink with them and you party with them every weekend, maybe you're just like, nah, I'm just gonna do my own thing the majority of the time. I'm gonna work on my goals, but you go hang out with them once a month instead of every weekend type thing. You don't have to like lose those friends as friends because you care about those people and you want to maintain that friendship in your life. They're great, they're good people, regardless if they're on another track or not. Some people are just not on the same path as you goal wise. So, do your own thing,
Mhm.
focus on yourself most, and then just every once in a while go to hang out with them, have a couple of brewskis, whatever, if you want to, without it leading you astray type thing.
Yeah, man. That's so perfect. And again, sometimes those people you're talking about, Coach Aaron, are your family members, right? And you're like, "Oh man, it's like I don't want to leave my family." I mean, that's, you don't have to leave them, but like you're saying, spend less time, right? Spend less time with those individuals who are holding you back. They're not in alignment with your character. And I like to say this: it's your life. It's your life. It's your hourglass. And the sand is running, man, and it doesn't stop. And when it's gone, you can't flip it over and start again. That's it. That sand is going to go. It's going to run down. What you do with the time while it's running is up to you. You get to make that choice. So if I move to point number 9, we're almost at the end of the day. I appreciate you sticking around here, Coach, and bringing more value to our conversation today. Set future orientated goals. So shift your focus from a past mistake to a future possibility. We talked about that. The action is to set your SMART goal. You talked about that in a previous episode. Have a goal, set it for a specific, a measurable, attainable, realistic, time sensitive goal, and have that structure. This goes back to journaling too. If you don't write it down, it doesn't really become real. It just becomes pie in the sky dream. Get it down, right? Get it on paper, get it in front of you, see it daily, make it a vision that you stare at, and it's something that becomes real. You can turn visualization into realization. That's going to make a big difference. So setting the future orientated goal is really important. It's not just a tell yourself what you want, but actually write it down and make it real. And so I always say this analogy because I love analogies. I think that seeing things in a visualistic way really helps me to absorb and understand information. So I always say this: the windshield is much larger than the rear view mirror. And that's for a reason. We need to see where we're going far more than we need to see where we've been. We can still look in the rear view and learn from that, but don't let it hold you back. You don't drive backwards. Use the windshield. It's much larger. What do you think of that, Coach?
Yeah, it's a great analogy, dude. I mean, that's just a phenomenal analogy because it's so visual, dude. I mean, it's like, yeah, look at what's in front of you. That's the big windshield right there. That's where you're going. Just the little rear view mirror is just a little tiny thing. Like, don't give it that much attention. Just peek in it every once in a while and be like, oh, okay, I could have learned from that lesson, and then move forward, baby.
Oh, yeah. I love it, man. We don't drive backwards on the Ultimate Man podcast. We got one more part to go, Coach, and I appreciate this here. Seek professional help. Now, I don't want to say that we are experts. We're not doctors. We've talked about this. We're not making claims that we are anything more than two really experienced coaches who've seen a lot of people, succeed in life, and we've seen a lot of people fall off of it as well. And we want to try to avoid you falling off by providing you with the GPS and give you the greatest how do we put that greatest possible self, right? But when people have some really serious trauma, we're not here to downplay that either and say that it didn't happen or it didn't serve you and turn it into something positive. Listen, we know that there's some deep rooted trauma. Some people have really had darkness in their past. There are professionals out there, and we wanted to make a point to say that our egos are not large to the point where we're going to say we can solve every problem. If you're listening to this podcast and you need help, there are people to go to. There are professionals, counselors, therapists who are trained in this. They're educated in it, and they know how to take you back and solve problems at the root cause. And it's some of the things that our first 9 tips today they just don't solve. So I wanted to make sure that we make that evident to every listener out there. If it's absolutely deep rooted, you've tried all other 9 things we've talked about today, you can still seek out help. There's always a way to get more out of your life. Coach, can you add to that, or is there anything you want to put on the seeking of professional help? We've talked about obviously getting coaches, getting trainers, but we're talking really deep rooted. Have you ever had to go that route? Have you had to go therapy, or maybe I'm diving too personal again. Share whatever you're willing to share, Coach.
No, I don't care. Get as personal as you want, man. I'm an open book these days. When you get old like me, you're like, screw it. I'll just, whatever. As much trials and tribulations I've been through, if I can just, give that as someone can learn from it, then, more power to it. So, yeah, I mean, I've had to seek help. I've been through, 2 drug rehabs when I was a kid. I went through the whole Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and seen psychologists and counselors and stuff back when I was a kid. So I definitely had to seek counselors and help when I needed. So yeah, I would just reiterate that and say, we're not professional psychologists by any means. We, like you said, we had a lot of experience in helping people, not only with their fitness, but their mindset as well, because we feel that mindset is a huge component of becoming the ultimate man. So, we like to emphasize that. But if you do need some serious help and you're in a deep down dark place, seek out someone who's really knowledgeable in that and get some real help.
Beautiful, man. I appreciate again. I love you, brother, for your honesty. Always being, an open book. And I think that's what our listeners appreciate the most. I've had people write into the show and tell us they've even been brought to tears by our first episode when they heard our stories for the first time. And these are guys out there who don't usually, admit that they've been brought to tears by anything, because it's not cool. It's not macho to be brought to tears by anything. But hey, real stories connect. And we both have real stories, man. So I appreciate you bringing it today, Coach. This is another valuable experience for me. I love listening. I learn as much here as I hope our listeners do, and maybe more as I get to talk to you and hear from you as well. So one thing I learned listening to, again, I mentioned Bedros Keuilian, stack the wins. That was something he talked about. Get a win journal and stack the wins, because when false evidence appearing real, fear, shows up, those wins are going to be the proof that you need to know that that fear does not need to exist any longer. It no longer serves you. Maybe it wasn't real in the first place. And the proof is going to be in your win journal. Look at it. See what you've accomplished. Every one little thing. Your wins don't need to be major. Every little win adds up. And when you start to add up more and more, the wins get heavier. And when the wins outweigh, those fears and those losses, man, it is a full forward momentum for you. And you're on your way to becoming the ultimate man. So the ultimate man has a bulletproof mindset module and a small course inside the forum that you can take if you're inside our forum. So definitely get yourself in there.
Hey, Ultimate Man, if you'd like to get access to our Bulletproof Mindset Masterclass to Badass, I'll put a link in the description, show notes below, and let's go, bro.
If you're interested in working with Aaron and I, and you want to gain some information and experience from us, then always reach out in the best way that you can. And that is going to be to get involved in the forum. You get a chance to mastermind with the entire group of men like yourself who are in it to win it. A complete community of like-minded individuals who are going to be in there, where Aaron and I can watch your form. We can motivate you. We have a leaderboard you can climb based on your workouts and performances. You actually get access to courses in there for free as part of your membership. There's always going to be more value. And every program we roll out, you're going to have first access to. So we take the questions and the topics for our podcast right from the forum. Gentlemen, there's no better place to be. If I wanted to get involved, this is where I would start. Get into the Ultimate Man Forum, and we will see you on the inside. Coach Aaron, I want to say congratulations, for completing such a transformation in your life. Dude, you changed your identity. You went from titling yourself as one guy to a complete brand new, in my opinion, ultimate man. And I appreciate you sharing this journey with me. So I just want to say, everyone listening here, also implement the practices and the consistency to build resilience, confidence, and create a positive narrative for your future. And remember, you have the power to shape your mindset and live your best life. So Coach Aaron, anything you'd like to add before we go today?
Back at you, brother. It's a pleasure just to speak with you every week and to learn from you as well, and to soak up some of your positive vibration. And I know we're spreading that, I like to call it my happy heart vibe, and sending it out to the tribe, to the rest of the people out there listening. And I know it's going to help uplift some people and get them on a positive trajectory. So, yeah, super appreciative that we're doing this podcast. Hope you guys are appreciating it out there. And comment below underneath this video, and tell us what you thought about this episode. Be sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Hit the bell for all the notifications so you get updated whenever we release a new episode every week, every Monday. And keep following our journey, and we're going to help you just level up in every way that we can.
Beautiful. I love that mindset. And today was all about mindset. So do it. Get in the comments and tell us about your mindset, how we've changed, maybe helping you with that mindset today. And then when you're done, bring it in, boys.
Yeah.